Epic Games has announced Unreal Engine 6 with now a beta branch available on GitHub to clone and compile yourself, which I've done and I've checked it out, and it's basically Unreal Engine 5.9 with a few different features. And I think we're not going to see any major changes on Unreal until a few more updates, until probably 6.2, 6.3. But with that came the announcement of kind of where they're going. In Epic, Tim Sweeney, kind of announcing the trajectory and the overall arching vision that he has for the engine and the industry as well, I guess, overall. And I will honestly say, as someone who has been using Unreal for 2 years, been watching them since Unreal Engine 4 became free for everyone, I'm not surprised by this shift or this vision. I am shocked that they're getting rid of blueprints so soon, like deprecating it and saying, nah, we're not using it anymore. In the future now we're going to be using Verse, which I was expecting a shift to that because I've been talking about Verse for quite a few years. And there was an interview Tim Sweeney did where he basically said, like, yeah, Verse is going to be the future programming language that we use in Unreal Engine. And my concern was that they're going to replace C++ with Verse. So in a way, I'm somewhat relieved. But I think getting rid of blueprints is a bit petty because the only reason that I can think of them doing this is to use LLMs, large language models, AI, setting up MCP servers or whatever they're called locally so that you can basically make games with AI. Because as someone who's been making games with blueprints for the past few years, it wasn't made for AI, and I feel like Unreal Engine 6 is definitely leaning towards those tools 100 times more. The fact that they even said that they were testing Verse using LLMs and saying, we're getting really good results, it just goes to show that they don't want designers doing that stuff anymore, and they'd rather them type in Verse. But I think instead of completely replacing blueprints, what I would have hoped to see, and what I was kind of almost itching to do myself, because Unreal's source code is somewhat open and you can do pull requests. It was more the effort that it would take for a single, junior software engineer still studying to do. I think what I would have done is change blueprints from a binary red format into something more kind of like JSON or XML, because that would obviously help them in their venture into making it more AI driven. But also I think it would help on other fronts in terms of like managing data and like being able to do pull requests more easily, and just like imagine being able to look at a pull request and be able to just read the blueprints in a sense, not visually, but maybe you can even incorporate some other visual editors that can then read whatever that blueprint file type is to read it. Anyways, that's kind of its own separate tangent, talking about what I think they should have done and what I would have done personally. But obviously they already had Verse there. They were using it for Unreal Engine and Fortnite. And Tim Sweeney's big thing has always been to be the Ready Player One guy, to make Unreal Engine and Fortnite the Oasis. That's what he wants. And I think, look, a few years ago, before AI was a big thing, the metaverse was the biggest. And I always told people that I think if there's anyone that is going to create a metaverse, it would most likely be Epic. I do think Tim Sweeney and Epic Games had the tools and the ecosystem kind of already developed, and a business model that was already there. And we've seen as well in the ways in which they do partnerships in Fortnite, with Disney, with Lego, which are two of the things that Tim Sweeney kind of mentioned in his most recent keynote during Unreal Fest. It's kind of them still trekking along to make that. I don't think as a developer, as a user, I'm very happy about this for a few reasons. To give some context, I've been working on a Cozy Cafe game for coming up to 5 years now. And when I first started making it, it was in Unity. And there came a point where I just wasn't happy with the toolset, just wasn't happy with it. And I decided to jump to Unreal. That was the one that clicked for me at the time. And I haven't regretted it. I really enjoy using Unreal. And that's what makes all of this stuff very heartbreaking. And I started using it in Unreal 5.2. And I have never looked at any of the new updates in Unreal Engine and thought, that is worthy of an update. Back in the day when Unity did stuff, I would see updates and go, that's a valid upgrade, whether it was a new rendering pipeline that was a lot better, a new input system. Like there were certain things, right, as a user that I was annoyed with in the old Unity and kind of there were reasons to update for me, at least. I found every new update a bit more exciting, until obviously things kind of hit the fan. With Unreal, right, the things that we've seen improvements of, megalites, meta-humans incorporated into the engine, none of that stuff has really made me want to switch or update. Also, it's a pain to update compared to Unity, at least I feel. When I think I tried going from like 5.2 to 5.3 or whatever, when the new version was out, I was like, I'll just update it. And it wasn't just as simple as, opening it in the new editor. Mind you, these older versions of Unreal have much more drastic changes to them, which I understand. What I've noticed as a solo game developer is that like Epic Games, although they somewhat cater to me in, their marketplace and in their tooling, their wider vision is not focused on independent creators. They're not focused on solo developers. They're not focused on the indies, right? Their primary focus is on AAA, on successful AA, on the big guys, right? I think what I got the most out of Tim Sweeney's talk and his vision was that basically he sees an issue, right, in currently like PlayStation, when you think of games, like Concord that bomb, or Marathon that I think will have its fan base, but I think people are very quick to jump from game to game now, and they're not as, even though some of these games are not free to play, others are, people are less insistent on paying with microtransactions in these games, which I agree. I think his analysis is pretty fair. But then what that means is, instead of making tools that are well optimized or looking at cool, interesting technology that helps smaller creators, or like something that helps everyone, right? He's focused on building things that help the big guys, the ones who are making battle royales. He's obviously focused on how can he improve Fortnite with the new verse programming language and how it works on the server side, not just having a max 100 players, but like 1,000 or as many players as a data center will allow. And that's where I think I find my issue with all of this. It's that I am just, as someone who is in this period of life that's trying to get into the industry and is learning about software and is just terrified of what everything's going to look like in the next 5 to 10 years, I was really hoping to have some reassurance. And Tim tried to do that, but I think the direction he's going in, right, in terms of focusing on AAA and trying to make it so that, NFTs are basically making a return, didn't really make me very excited. And the thing is, right, it's all about the execution. I do not trust Epic to ever make performance software. I'm not as much of an Unreal Engine slop hater. I think the reason why there's so much slop is because they make it so easily accessible and it's so cheap to do it. But also, at the same time, it takes a lot of work to optimize those games to make them good. Nanite and Lumen just didn't fix the industry issues we thought we had. When you look at the original demo that Unreal Engine 5 had, I have not seen anything equally to that same level running on the specs it was saying, right, in any of the other games, because it was obviously a tech demo. Things like Lumen and Megalites and, dare I say, metahumans are not something that I think have really helped the industry. Like, they've pushed things forward a little bit, but it is not as groundbreaking as I think they like it to be. And I just hate with every new version of Unreal, one thing has been improved drastically, while other things just have completely broken. And that's what happens when you work in a massive engine like Unreal. Things are going to break, and there's old code and new code, and you want to add these new things in, and so you kind of stitch it together. I would just, it must be so hard for those software engineers working at Epic, just trying to churn out all these things and make them work with the ecosystem and the architecture they have. And then there's Tim over here spending all of Epic's revenue on legal fees, suing Apple and Google and Valve. And I just think, like, man, you let off thousands of people that could have been working on new products, new games, interesting ideas, experimenting, not just for things for the big AAA, not just focusing on improving nanite or finding a better way of like incorporating metahumans, which hardly work on my, 2019 PC build. I just wish they focused more on performance and making things good. I wish they would fix the Epic launcher to actually run well. I wish Fab wasn't a piece of crap to work with, full of AI-generated content, and I wish things were just better. Quite simply, that's what I wish. And I don't think Epic Games and the direction Tim Sweeney's going in is going to make things better for me and for us smaller developers out there, for the small indie studios, for the people who are trying to make games for the first time. I think he sees where the money is because that's what he needs to pay his legal fees. And he goes to Disney and he goes to Lego and he goes to the big AAA. He goes, hey, PlayStation, I'll make NFTs actually work for you. So when Concord 2 doesn't work out, then people can still bring over their cosmetics into the other game that's actually successful, into Marathon or whatever. But at the same time, right, I just look at it and go, the direction that this company is going and the tool that this is going, in a couple of years, it's going to be like, if I want to make a new project, right, what I would at least do, since I'm currently using 5.2, is that I would upgrade to 5.7, 5.8. Really, I'm going to probably only upgrade to 5.4 because of some of the later changes they've made, that things are just so much slower and are breaking. And I have a feeling, right, that like Unreal Engine 6.7 will have C++, and you can do verse, but no one uses verse. Everyone just uses an AI interface to type all the things that they want. And we're going to get the same thing. That's my biggest concern, right? Is that Unreal Engine already has that flavor of, oh, this was made in Unreal Engine, with the lighting and the rendering and the way that even the character controllers work, like that is already there. And you can put in some work, right, to make those things feel and look different. My biggest concern is that I think Unreal Engine 6 slop is going to be even worse, because when you get AI programming things and making things, it's going to regurgitate the same thing over and over. Yes, it'll be faster, but I don't think people will then put in the effort to make theirs unique, right? Like I can see AA and AAA just using it to incorporate a feature or something, and it's just going to be the same. And it's going to be boring and bland and uncreative and not groundbreaking. And I think Unreal Engine 6 slop is going to be even worse than Unreal Engine 5 because, and this is a comment that I read in the YouTube section. Basically what Tim Sweeney said was, instead of Roblox eating up the industry, he wants Fortnite to be eating up the industry instead. And I think that's the direction that these companies are trying to go for. Like I just look at Sandbox, right? The recently released game/engine by Face Punch with Gary, who made Gary's mod. And man, he is struggling to really make the ecosystem grow. I feel like everyone's trying to do the same thing, but no one's being creative enough or solving problems smart enough, or even just listening to the community enough to either say no to something or to be so drastically different that people either love it or hate it. I can see this lukewarmness that is going over the industry in terms of our creative ventures. And this is something that I think is happening because of the laziness we see with AI and just the maturity of the industry right now. We're kind of getting into this lull of almost apathy, right, towards making games. People just want to make games enough to make their money back and to live. And that's something that I feel as well sometimes. But at this point, right, I think if I was to make the next game after my current one, I would either go back to a fork of Unreal Engine 4. There's some really interesting ones that are performant and I kind of close that ecosystem off and say, all right, everything I'm building within this fork of the engine, I'm building myself. I'm not relying on any asset stores or anything like that. At this point, right, I'm looking at what I want to build and what tools I want available. And Unreal is just, it's getting bigger, it's getting bloated, it's getting more towards bigger industry people who are just trying to make their money back. And I think I don't have a vendetta against anyone who does want to use that in the future, because I think there's money to be made there. But at the same time, is it healthy for the industry where we're at? I think right now, right, this is the best opportunity for someone to go and make a game engine and try and take some of those people who really loved Unreal for what it had and what they're throwing away in terms of blueprints. Like if you can make something, I think other engines, things like Stride, I think Monogame's going to get picked up more. I think smaller developers are going to want to jump ship and to go to things that, like, I'm just sick of how slow Unreal Engine is. I've loved working in C++ and I've loved working in Blueprints, but I just wish that ecosystem was a bit faster. And I want that maturity, but in different tools that have more importance of just being game engines rather than ecosystems. Because that's what Unreal Engine is going to be, right? It's going to be an ecosystem. It's going to be a storefront. That is why Tim Sweeney is suing the crap out of everyone, because he wants to be able to put his own storefront, which is the metaverse, onto every device so he can get all the money. But that's going to come at the cost of the users, both the players and the developers. In a way, we have to sell our souls to be grateful to be in this Unreal Engine 6 slop ecosystem. And these are strong words, but it's because far out, man, someone's been making games since I was 14. Like, you just can't trust these big companies. With the way that Unity went off a cliff suddenly once it became public, and the way that Tim Sweeney just, like, if you're the freaking CEO of a game company, focus on making freaking awesome tools for making games. Like, stop suing Apple and Google and firing all your employees. Make a freaking new genre, right? You had people who invented Gears of War, people who made Fortnite. Use those people to make new and interesting games that can then create new established technology that you can sell, rather than talking to Disney or Lego or whoever else and finding ways to print money so you can sue people, so you can put your crappy stores on these different devices and take everyone's money. Like, behind his mask of,
to build the ecosystem of the future, we're going to have to build it together. And I think the thesis for that is very optimistic, that between all of us and the world's best games, many of which use Unreal Engine, and many of whose developers use Unreal Engine, and many projects, we have billions of active users. And so we have the opportunity to form up into Team Open and to define the future of gaming together again. And that's exactly what we want to accomplish in this generation together with you.
What he wants is to make the most money as possible, to have no red tape so he can do whatever he wants, and that Epic becomes the big player. And it makes me so frustrated because I have actually fell in love with the tools that Unreal has been able to be for me. Like, Epic, I love what they've done locally. I live in Melbourne, and some of the awesome meetups we have during the Games Week and conventions are fantastic. Some of the people that come and visit and talk with us are amazing. They are the best people in the industry. They know the tools in and out. They know how to make anything, and far out, if you put them in the right R&D group, they are going to make some incredible things. But Tim Sweeney is so caught up in posting on X, taking people to court, and he just burns his cash and burns his goodwill with the community and the culture of gaming. The guy who helped establish Epic Games, Unreal Tournament, who had the luck, mind you, this wasn't a planned thing to be a massive success. Fortnite was not big. When it was first announced, I was like, this is a cool, interesting game. I'm going to try it when it comes out. And they pivot, luckily, to a battle royale and make a freaking basically billion-dollar revenue on digital skins. Like, I've never bought a skin in Fortnite. And then I saw my nephew look at the prices of things in Fortnite, and it's like $40 for a hammer. What the hell? That is greedy. That is disgusting. I was born at the wrong time. I wish I was born 10 years earlier so I could be in the days of Doom with Carmack, that I could be there when Half-Life 2 came out, and I could have been some junior guy at Valve making sick-ass levels, learning awesome C++ from these amazing veterans, but instead I am stuck here in this stupid AI bubble, and I don't know if I'm going to get a job when I graduate my computer science degree. I don't know what AI is going to do to the future of us. I just miss when software was freaking awesome, when smart people taught junior people to make cool stuff, and that games were exciting. So many things that we live in this world has just ruined us. I think streaming games, things like Twitch, have just ruined us. I think social media, things like X and TikTok, have ruined us. It's ruined our taste. It's divided us into groups and subgroups. It's made things way too political. And all this stuff now with AI and data centers and technology, it's just feeding up so much resource and is so poorly optimized. It's just sucking the life out of everything and makes me want to go into the woods with a frickin' cyber deck and a solar panel, making games in C from scratch using a textbook that was published in the 80s. I am not excited for Unreal Engine 6. I will, of course, dabble because I always dabble in different things. I am always looking at new tools and new engines because I'm just waiting for something exciting to happen. I want new technology that isn't going to eat up all of the electricity and increase all the RAM prices. And this is what upsets me the most, right? It's not the fact that blueprints are getting removed in Unreal Engine, because you know what? We can just, as long as the licensing, stays the same, they don't change it, they don't backtrack older versions, to then have to pay fees or whatever. We can stay on the versions that we want. And realistically, right, I'm not going to get too upset by missing out on Unreal 6.2 because it has meta NPCs that look at me, because Valve did that back in 2004, and I can incorporate that myself. It's the fact that they are just pushing another AI thing in front of all of us, and so electricity is going to be more expensive. Our Steam decks and our Steam machines and our PCs and our RAMs and our phones and everything are going to get more expensive, because once you have Verse, going through with the AI and all the big game studios are using it, things are going to get more expensive. There are going to be more data centers. There's going to be less water for humanity. And there's going to be a point, right, where sci-fi fiction like Dune or freaking Waterworld or Mad Max is going to become our reality. Anyway, that's what I think of Tim Sweeney's announcement and the future of Unreal Engine, Unreal Engine 6. Freak, man, the industry is just an utter mess, and I have no idea how we're going to get through it. I think I might turn this into like a wildlife and camping channel. I think we're going to become the outdoor boys, I think, because, it freaking sucks. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.